Good morning and happy slushy day. It's 7-Eleven. Who's going to who's going to 7-Eleven today to get their free
Oh
slushy,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
did
that's
not
right.
even
I
know
thought
that.
about getting one to have on the recording, but alas, I don't. Hey everybody, welcome to the Microsoft 365 Government Community Call. We have your typical roster of hosts here today. Jay Leask, Jeremy, Rima, Sarah. It's a pleasure to have you all as usual. We do not have a special guest for you today. We pulled an audible. We were hoping to have a zero trust conversation. We're going to push that down the road a little bit. And instead, our special guest is going to be our very own Jeremy Wood. So, Jeremy, get off the screen. I'm kidding. Stay. Join us. We're going to play a little Know the Hosts today. But first, before we do, we've got our usual roundup of community events, roadmap updates, and news from the community. Jeremy, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, of course. So we just missed, as always, the NARA user group because it's always the first week of July. And this time around, it was a demonstration of how an agency actually configured their purview compliance configuration. So I highly recommend that. We'll put a link in the chat for that user group on max.gov, as we always do. The DC Power Platform user group has a meeting July 19th. Which
wait. So we always miss it. So when is the next one going to be? And do we know what the topic is going to be?
We don't know the topic this far in advance.
Okay.
Because they just finished last week.
Yep.
And it will be the first Thursday. It's always the first Thursday of the month.
Okay. So Thursday the 3rd of August. All right. Thank you. Sorry. All right. Keep going. Yeah. Back to the 19th.
So DC Power Platform user group's going to do something interesting. Instead of having their own meeting, they're getting together with other user groups across the Northeast region, and they're having a big Dynamics user group meetup in Arlington, Virginia.
Yes.
All-day event.
Yes,
so
I'm registered for it. I'm supposed to be in two places at once, both at the same building. So I'm hoping to be able to make it by.
Also on July 19th is Teams Premium and GCC webinar hosted by Microsoft. So we just talked about that. So, you can decide if you want to go to that one, but I'm sure it'd be really great. And then the date has not been determined yet for the Microsoft 365 meetup for Government. They're usually at the end of the month, and so they kind of about halfway through the month they start doing their advertising. Last month they had a candid conversation with Sanjay Koyani. He's the CTO at Department of Labor.
Oh, I would be very curious to go back to that candid conversation.
It was really good.
All right.
And July 13th, it's still TBA, but M365 DC. June was Tips and Tricks administering Exchange Online, and July 20th is Baltimore SPUG featuring Nate Chamberlain, an MVP.
Oh, very nice. I also threw in here, this is a little bit further out than we normally talk about, but in August on the 29th and 30th, this is a save the date. AvePoint, Summit 7, and Microsoft are coming together to do a 2-day free workshop called Achieving CMMC Compliance in Microsoft 365. It's geared towards helping organizations in the defense industrial base, the DIB, to collaborate confidently in protect the government's data in Microsoft 365. Like I said, this is going to be free. It's 2 days, but you only go to one of the days. The 29th is going to be small business focused, and the 30th is going to be enterprise focused. And no, we're not checking your business size at the door. Figure out which one are the closest peers to you so that you can be in a room with the same people who have similar problems and challenges. We're super excited to bring this together. Just had a content meeting yesterday. It's going to be really cool. So if you're interested, while the registration page isn't up yet, 1, put it on your calendar, and 2, reach out to me and I will make sure you get information when that registration page is available. Sorry, I needed to put that in there because it's far enough out that I'm like, should I? But also, like, I want people to be able to clear their schedules because it's in person, it's in DC. Super excited about it. Okay, all right, that's enough of that. News from the community. No, roadmap update. I'm going out of order. I'm messing things up all over the place. Rima, this is your section, but before you do, I really wanted to put a reminder out there because I was looking at like what people are talking about in the news and stuff. The public sector roadmap newsletter on Sarah's public sector tech community public sector space Check the chat for the link. It's a great newsletter. They have a ton of information, and it's not just technical updates. Like the first 10 or so links are articles relevant to the public sector space that aren't necessarily tech updates. So while we love that you come to us for your monthly roadmap update, also check out this newsletter to scan for things of particular interest. That's my soapbox.
And it was written by Jesse Tedoff, who we've actually had on the show. And if you remember, he talked about his very involved process to sort everything for that roadmap newsletter. It's very involved, and he's an amazing person, and he does his job well. So please go check it out.
There we go.
Beautiful newsletter. Like it's formatted wonderfully. Like I was looking at it earlier. I was like, oh my god, it's actually like wonderfully like there's sections, like you can go. It's visually appealing. this is very exciting for me. Usually
Rima's over here like crying, like Daddy.
I know, this is like the best amazing.
Debbie, we're gonna need a crop of this particular segment to send to Jesse's manager for her name. I'm just kidding.
Oh my god. All right. Well, on to like more fun roadmap stuff. Thank you, Jay, by the way. So I know we talk about Viva here and there, but just so that DoD does not feel left out, we do have support for Viva connections for DoD that's starting to roll out in June. I know folks are always like, well, what about us? So that's a big one that's coming out. Another big one is something called virtual appointments in Microsoft Teams, and that's coming to GCC, and that rollout is starting in June. So essentially, it's this app that provides a single place where professionals or administrators or anyone who wants to create like virtual appointments can create and manage those scheduled and on-demand virtual appointments in Teams, and then view appointment insights and analytics and get real-time status updates in like a queue sort of view, and then can also send out appointment reminders. It's a great way to schedule appointments with external stakeholders, figuring out schedules. It's a really, really interesting way of managing your time and managing invites. So how
does that compare to bookings?
I was about to say, it sounds like a combination of like Teams and bookings and insights all in one interface.
You got it right. Exactly. That's exactly it. Yep.
Right.
So what's really interesting. I'll say some organizations, I won't say who, but maybe they might have like some medical or like even like booking with right. Like so they've been using that, or even you want to like book, have a virtual appointment with a specific part of the org around, something like HR related, whatever it may be. You can have that sort of virtual appointment experience. It's a really nice sort of a Cadillac way of doing this. So
does it rhyme with Veterans Hospital Association? Wait, that's not how that game works.
Maybe.
No, that's really cool. And also, like, I can see, like, the U.S. courts, as an example, could do virtual court appointments in using it, too. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And in a GCC space, I can see it being very, very relevant.
Yeah, and there's an entire API that comes with it, too. So if you want to custom build a solution on top of it as well, like, there's that as well. So again, there's a lot of options here, but this is something that I think would be really beneficial, especially for government, because there's so much of that. Like, even if you want to go get your Social Security benefits explained, right, you need to make it that kind of thing. So
okay.
Nice.
The other thing too, not to go back to Viva, but Viva for GCC, I know, right? Automatic topic relationships are now available in GCC. So it's essentially the ability for Viva to suggest relationships between topics that are important.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And that's going to be available for customers in GCC. And they essentially, you'll get like a topics page in SharePoint, and you'll have like a topic card. Like even if you go search on it, you'll see like a topics page that'll come up and will have sort of related information and some answers there. It's already obviously available for worldwide, but again, coming to GCC. So I can't tell you how often I actually use Viva Topics to go find like content related to a specific subject or whatever. It's really amazing.
I'm laughing at Jeremy's smirk because I know he's going up, but it costs extra money.
I know. I don't have to pay for it, so I feel like I'm fine. But I'm an employee. I'm like, so I don't know.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I think because from a knowledge management perspective, this piece of Viva is very interesting to me because it can, help expose to the organization what things mean. So we're all using the same terminology, or at least we could relate terms that mean the same thing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that.
And it has like a little mind map too.
Absolutely. And there are organizations that spend a ton of money on knowledge management.
Yeah.
I know one of the labs has built a wiki-like database of curated knowledge. That's what Viva Topics is all about. So I think it's a great technology. You just need an engaged knowledge management organization to not just curate it, but to then champion the additional cost that's going to come along with it. But it's a great tool.
It really, again, I'll give you just a personal example really quick. I was trying to figure out something around Azure API management just internally. I was like, who owns that? Like, what is it? What are some of the I just want like a learning deck, and all of that came up with Viva Topics. I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And this is just by doing a search on our home. So anyways.
Yep.
The final thing I'll talk about too is obviously on the heels of last month's task management episode. If you were kind of saying to yourself, hey, to-do isn't available for me in GCC, I feel slighted, no one loves me, the world is ending, things are really dark. I know.
That got really dark really fast.
Really dark,
if this is your stance, we'd love to talk to you about how to not let it bring you down that much.
But so if you're in GCC high on DoD, good news is that the to-do app is rolling out. So don't worry, things are not so bleak anymore. The sun is bright, everything is shining, the world makes sense again. So just FYI.
That's so funny. There is a certain amount of satisfaction I get when I click the checkbox and it dings at me.
Yes, the bing.
Fantastic. And listen, if you want to know more, because we just hit some, Rima, these were really good pieces to hit today, so thank you. But if you want to know more, just do a quick Bing search or whatever your favorite search engine might be.
Google's fine too. Ask Jeeves. I don't know.
and just search for Microsoft 365 roadmap. And when you get there, the filters, you can filter on any product, but the filters you need to filter on are cloud instance, where you can select DoD, GCC, GCC High, or if you're in commercial, the worldwide one. And you can see all the changes that are happening. It's a really great way to keep up to date with what's coming today and what's coming in the future. So
actually, even better, we'll put in a link in the chat that has those filters already in place.
Yeah, I that's a smart move too. Actually, Sarah, didn't you create like a Microsoft short link that goes straight to that filter? I thought maybe not.
Not to the filter, no, but anybody can use it. I think like I've done it for like different specific ones that you can do, but like specific like numbers. Anyway, on with that not segue on to news from the community. I'm not good at segues, or if I do, they're very, very strange ones. So there was a great article from Dan Narlock. Hello, Dan. On ensuring a strong security posture, including pointers on data loss prevention, configuration and information on the security, compliance, and identity community. So please go check that out. And it's called Strengthen Your Security and Optimize Your Resources with Microsoft 365 Government, because we don't do short titles here.
I mean, have you ever looked at a slide in the public sector space? We don't do short anything except acronyms.
No.
So don't feel bad.
And the acronyms are getting just bigger and bigger. Anyways.
We've run out of 3-letter combinations.
Exactly. A bit older, and this is from May, but there's an article out from Ken D'Amato on how M365 helps to decrease the gap in communications, productivity, and technology use. This is a big one. The government is staffed by everyone from Gen Z to baby boomers. And if you want to talk about the difficulties in working with people who simply don't have the same philosophies in working with people, let alone understanding of technology, like working with your kids or just different generations for a day, it can be tough. And that one is titled How Microsoft 365 Helps Public Sector Organizations Embrace Generational Diversity. That is definitely that's quite a subject to delve into.
Right.
I'm technically, it's weird. A lot of people tend to think I don't know why. Maybe I have a young face. People tend to think I'm Gen Z. I am not. I am a millennial. But
yeah.
I had somebody recently tag me in a LinkedIn post being like, yeah, yay for all you Gen Zers out there. And I had to message this person and be like, I am very flattered, but I'm 38.
You're what you would call an elder millennial.
An elder millennial, yes. Yes.
What do they call us?
I actually saw there was a comedian did a bit about elder millennials recently.
Eliza Schlesinger, I think. Yeah, it's really funny because it's
gosh.
like it rang true. Of like that is
right.
Me. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, my 11-year-old is Jeremy. I don't because I work with your daughter. Like my 11-year-old, her understanding of tech and stuff just blows me away. And I'm a particularly tech forward person, and I'm like, we are never going to be able to work together. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Send her to the government.
Send her to the government.
We'll take her. we need fresh people in the government.
I was like, where is this going? Oh god.
No. Lately, I've been on a kick trying to get more and more people to go get government jobs.
I'm just imagining Jeremy just dropping off his kid in front of the White House and then just leaving.
Good job.
She belongs to you now.
Bye.
Oh man. Oh, this is good. Well, this is, speaking of good segues, this is a great segue. So, first of all, Sarah, thank you for the news updates. So today, rather than bring in an external host, there was some back, I think about a year and a half ago, we did like a get to know your hosts episode, and all four of us just kind of chatted for a little while. But Sarah, you recently suggested that we deep dive into some of our backgrounds, get to know us a little bit, some of our personal stuff as well. But like, how did we get here? How did we become someone who supported the government space? How did we get into technology? And not only because I think it's an interesting story, but because you're our only government actual employee on the hosting staff, we voluntold you, Jeremy, that you would be first.
I did see that in the invitation. Yes,
that's true. It just kind of Jeremy was going to be our guest. Wait, what?
Like, okay,
surprise.
So Jeremy Wood, tell us a little bit about, like, let's start with what's your job. Give us all the nitty-gritty details, including any secret material that you may have access to. But no, tell us a little bit about who you are, what your role is, who you work for, and we'll dig in from there.
Yeah, so I, Jeremy Wood, if you've never met me before, but everybody has. I work at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, been there about a year and a half. I've been in government.
No. Has it really been a year and a half?
Been a year and a half, yeah.
COVID time really is hard to
I'm trying to think how long I've been in government. I always have to think back. I think 2012 or so I came into government. But at the SEC, I am the chief for our enterprise architecture branch, which weirdly you'd think would do just enterprise architecture, but it also does, because we're government, we group things together sometimes. So I'm also responsible for all of our software licensing, making sure we're complying with what we only use what we own, and all those audits that we do on ourselves. So yeah, I have a team of people who do the software and manage our approved software list and all that wonderful stuff. And then we have the normal for us anyway, EA work that is everything except architecting solutions. But more so, like, under the federal enterprise architecture framework, we have to build a bunch of models, link those models, understand how they impact the business, provide that to leadership for decision making. We do a lot of forward planning. We have our target architecture. We do forward planning to say this is how much it would cost to go to that. This is how much time we think it'll take to do that. So we got a lot of interesting things that we do, but at this particular organization, the actual solutioning happens more so in the actual dev teams, which is interesting.
So, because you come from a policy background too, like you've been working M365 for a while, but even in your last agency, you were policy focused. So is that similar to where you are now?
I would say it's a mixture of my background. So going way back, because I'm older than a millennial.
No.
Baby boomers on.
I'm firmly no, not that. I'm firmly Gen X though. I'm firmly latchkey kid. I started my career in IT and networking and server builds, WANs, LANs. I did that in the Air Force, and right at the beginning when LANs became a thing, like we had to introduce and wire our first buildings and build our servers. And so um, the interestingly, I got my MCSE, did all the Microsoft tech, right? The Novell NetWare was big at the time, so got all that certifications. And then when I transitioned out of the military, I completely changed careers and became a software developer. And then I did software engineering, actual building solutions, delivery for companies for about 7 to 9 years there. I worked for companies in the DoD space, mostly pushing solutions. And that's so I didn't leave my DoD roots for the Air Force. I stayed in my DoD roots as a contractor delivering stuff. So I say that so that, when I came into government, that's when things started to go less technical, more managerial, building teams. I still did manage teams for a while that built solutions, but slowly over time, I want to learn all the parts of IT. I think the only thing I haven't worked in is security, and I'm not sure I want to.
Fair.
Yeah.
So, I've done the budget, the capital budget planning for IT and my 2 agencies ago. I've done change management. I've done policy. I've done records management. I've help desks. So I tried to do a little bit of everything because I figured from a leadership position, like I'm trying to learn everything so that I can make good decisions, right? I understand the business and don't make a decision that's going to cause my coworkers to dislike me.
Okay, so I have a question. So this is kind of a 2-part question because I want to understand a little bit more about, obviously, yes, like what you do day to day, but I also want to understand from all of your wealth of experience, like what is the most challenging thing for you as a chief, and do you think it's unique to government? So just kind of explain a little bit about what's hard being in your role, if you don't mind.
So I think it's probably not much different than many places. Relationship building is so critical. In my organization, there are, I don't know, 20, I'm guessing, so nobody come at me after this, 20-ish branch chiefs, people of my same level. Actually, maybe even more. And so those are the people I try to build relationships with because they're the people running the other shops, right? They're the ones running the service desk, the software distribution network, the different security teams from risk to the ATO process to, right? And then there's the project teams that are program management that are focused on different business areas and delivering solutions to them. And I am in the middle of all that because while I'm not architecting solutions, I am providing feedback on designs where we're trying to push them to use a standardized set of technology, right? Which nobody's ever likes, but we're in those interactions. So to do that job, we need to build relationships so people realize it's not personal. It's not us coming and just disagreeing with you. It's let's have a good relationship so that we can have this healthy debate, and in the end, we'll both come to an agreement on what the way forward is. And so a lot of my job is communication to people in a way that's not going to piss them off, right? Especially if I'm going to have to tell them no on something. Like I always try to say no, but.
So no and.
Or no and.
Oh.
Yeah, no and. Yes. Sorry, no and. And so for example, like I have people who request software all the time through the wrong process.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's great because I see it and go, well, we never want that software anyway, so we can kill it before they've ever submitted their request properly. And sometimes we just need to help them get to the correct request process and educate them a little bit and get them to the right people who can handle it. But like if it's software we don't want, then I'm going to look at it and go, what do we have that could still do this job already?
Yeah.
Right. So, for instance, I don't know if you know about the memo. Broadly, the government's staying away from generative IT or AI right now. Generative AI is scary because the data residency issues for government. Where is that data being stored as it's being processed and generating stuff for you? And so, Grammarly, which is a very popular writing tool, is leveraging generative AI behind the scenes And so it's not government certified. It's a cloud service, right? So I have to tell my people, I'm sorry, we can't use it. The best thing we have to offer is Microsoft Editor, which is part of our Office 365. Right. If nobody here has ever used the Microsoft Editor, it's actually fantastic.
No, yeah, it is great, actually. Yeah.
I'm just imagining you responding back to them being like, "Ha, correct your own grammar."
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, that's great.
Oh my God.
But so, I think though it's all about bridge building, right? And relationship building, and trying to say, if we're going to say no for whatever the reason, we have a reason for it that's logical, that they can accept, and we can talk about maybe the world will change and we'll have a different opinion in the future. So don't give up. Yeah. But here's where we are today.
And I like your approach. You're not just saying no, you're saying no, but giving them a branch, right? Something you can do. I misspoke. It's yes and is a phrase. If you've ever been to one of my workshops on working between business and IT, yes and is the phrase that you go with, because IT says no a lot. Like we tell people no a lot. But if you say yes, and here's what it would take to accomplish that, right? Like, we want to get Grammarly. Yes, you can get Grammarly. And in order to do that, we need to get approvals for X, Y, Z, and D. Do you want to own that approval chain? Because if you do, I'm happy to go forth and conquer. If not, here's Microsoft Editor.
Right. And you're right. I could have gone to them and said, "Oh, you want that? Well, here's the process to go through, and we have a service delivery framework that you submit things through, and it gets all those checkboxes, right? The governance reviews by security, by the infrastructure people, by us, by everybody gets the hack on it. But I could save them a lot of time and say, we just put out a policy saying nothing that uses generative AI is going to make it through that. Right. So let me save you a little bit of time and tell you what you can use. And so that happens from time to time. And we do have, because we are kind of a central organization, our branch is responsible for all the software and all the applications inventory. People come to us and say, what do you have that can help me do this? Right. I love that aspect, because now we're in a service role of saying, what's your problem statement? Let's talk about what we have that can meet that problem statement. And if we don't have something that can, then maybe we start talking about what other options are in the marketplace.
Also, Jay, yes, and is the rules of improv as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Is that your job, Jeremy? Is it improv?
Is it improv?
So it feels like it some days.
I would not put it past him at all.
Actually, if you could simplify what your job is into a metaphor, how would you, to somebody that just doesn't understand what you do at all, how would you describe it? Which I'm pretty sure you've had to do before too. I know I have.
Ooh, a metaphor? Now I gotta get all Englishly.
You mean the language you speak?
Yeah, well, I don't speak it well.
I gotta use my mouth words.
If only I was a native speaker.
Words. Oh, this is why we don't go off the cuff, guys.
I mean, I don't know about a metaphor, but I would say simply our role is to help people find the technology that they should be using.
Ooh, that fits. And that fits with the enterprise architects I've worked across the government space as well. Is their job is not to implement, their job is not to deploy, their job is to help guide people to A, what tools do we have today, and B, what tools can we recommend that you look at based on the requirements you're bringing to us. It's like a middleware position almost.
It is.
In that you are guiding people, but what they choose to do is ultimately their choice.
Yeah, to the degree that it can get through the governance, the wonderful bureaucracy that we internally have to deal with, not just externally suffering people.
Right. Hey, by the way, speaking of generative AI, Bing Chat says there are 24 offices and each office has at least one branch chief. So you were shy when you said 20. Just
All
saying.
Right. Well, I'm not allowed to use that tool, so I would never know. I'd have to open my static PDF org chart and count them.
Yes, there it is.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Oh man. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna ask another question. Is that
right?
Okay.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So I'm always thinking about growth, in people growing in their career, and something that was always kind of a mystery to me. Not really a mystery, but it seemed like it was harder in government, right? Because government is very specific in terms of like your GS and your steps, and you have to. So in terms of how do you grow yourself, and then also how do you grow the people that work for you when you're in such an, like, IT is a very forward-leaning, very, like, fast-paced sort of topic or subject, so to speak. So how do you do that for yourself and your people in government? How's that different maybe a little bit than commercial, if you would think about it that way?
Yeah, so it is challenging. So we do have career ladders in the government. We have org charts, right? And there's a defined career ladder that says if you start here, your next career, change should be to here, then to here, then to here. But I would say in practice, unless you're at an organization with a lot of turnover, those slots don't become open very often, right? So then you have to start thinking, and it comes down to how specialized you are, right? And to be fair, like in government, we outsource a lot of the hands-on technical work. Most government agencies have moved to that model. It's beneficial in that it allows government to shift resources quickly. If we change directions, we just move to a new company or the existing company if it's within scope. It gives us a lot more flexibility because with government employees, it's just like any place. It's hard to train them. It's hard to get them into the new thing, right? And so that would produce a lot of lag time, and we already have a lot of lag time in government. So I would say, I mean, there's typical career progression. And like I'll use mine as an example. So when I came into government as a GS-13, and I was a software architect. And so I started out designing solutions, hiring contractors to build them, and occasionally build them on my own because as a government employee, I had to fill my time, right? I had to be productive and produce value for the organization. So, and I had the skill, I could also build some stuff on my, along with, on the side. And that's something people don't realize in government is there will always be opportunities, just like other places, to have these side projects that you can volunteer for or get involved with, spend some time on, and can benefit your career when you're looking for your next opportunity. But I quickly realized, working where I did at the Department of Agriculture in the Agriculture Marketing Service, that there wasn't a natural place for me to go up from there. So 13 was my max in that organization for the role I was in. There was no natural progression. Everybody above me was a business person. I worked in a business area. I didn't work in the IT shop. Everybody above me was business focused. They were all experts in food nutrition and whatever else, right?
Right.
So something I tell a lot of people in government is don't shy away from looking at another agency. So I moved to another agency, and that's when I took my first supervisory job. So I went from a 13 to a 14. I was very fortunate at that organization to have an opportunity to apply for a 15 position, and had my previous boss who did a lateral really push me to do it. And so then that was the only place I've been where I had a natural career progression, where I was the branch chief in an organization and I became the next level at the same organization. But I have found, talking to everybody I know in government, it's much more likely you're going to change agencies. You have to be open to that. And as you progress in your career, with the GS pay scales, GS-15 is the top of the pay scale. Then you have to make decisions. Do you want to go into the senior executive service? It's hard to get into. There's a lot you have to write I think it's a baseline 10-page report on yourself on very specific topics.
Yep.
Wow.
That's not including the technical ones, where it's like another 6-page report on yourself on some technical stuff. And then that goes off to OPM and gets validated that you've written it well enough and it's acceptable and the agency accepts it. It's very, very difficult to get hired through that process. A lot of people who become, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but a lot of people I know personally have more likely gone through an SES candidate program at the agency they worked at. And so they became well known in their agency that they were a good worker. They got, recommended to that program. They go through that program, and then you have a bit of a leg up coming out of that program. That document's written and accepted. So then you have a greater chance of applying to a job. Or alternatively, this is something that's not as well known in government, is you go work for a financial agency like the SEC or FDIC or Federal Reserve, and they have a different pay system. They have a different pay, they have different pay ranges.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't
I
need to
did not
dive into
know
my
that.
pay, but it was beneficial to me to move to the SEC from a pay perspective.
So how many
That's
dollars per
awesome.
hour do you make? I'm kidding.
Damn.
You know, they don't, you know, the fully burdened labor rate is not disclosed to us very often.
There it is. Yeah. So that's interesting. I actually have in one of my consulting roles when I worked at Booz Allen, I supported the SES candidate training program. And I've always thought that was a really interesting program, at least, and that was now 10, 12 years ago. They had monthly sessions where you got together with other candidates and other SES, and they had a speaker every time. So it was a really interesting program that I do recommend you know, if you're in that direction, that you definitely look into how can you engage with it. How did you?
Hold on. Before you go on, I'm a big fan of those programs. I would tell you this: you need to move to the organization that hosts those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So while those programs are open to anybody from any organization, they only bring on 1% from outside of the organization. And if your cohort is only 20, right, then it's highly competitive. And so there are only, I don't want to speak out of turn and be wrong, but the large agencies like Treasury runs those programs, State Department runs those programs, the large agencies run those SES candidate programs. And so to be better competitive, you need to work for those organizations. So think about that when you're crafting your career. I waited too long. And so from a pay perspective, I would have had to, the organization I worked at before this one, I was already bumping up the max and a little bit over of the GS pay scale. And so going someplace that had a candidate program was actually a pay cut for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had to then make a different decision in terms of my, you know, where I wanted to go.
Okay. That is very interesting. Now, you mentioned you were military and then you were civilian and now you're a federal employee. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, so unlike a lot of people I know, I have a lot of friends who are retired from the military. I got out after almost 10 years. Career decision, .com thing was going back gangbusters. I got out just in time for the bust, but you know, oh well. But there's still opportunities in the, you know, as you all who live in the DC area, I know Sarah, you're not in the DC area, but those of us who live in the DC area know there's always opportunity on government contracts. It's not the same as Silicon Valley with their ups and downs. So I would say the biggest part of my transition was from going from a regimented military mindset. Even in IT, I was IT and military doing networking and WANs and LANs, but I still had a commander. I had, you know, supervisor, sergeants that I reported to. They could still march my butt around if they wanted to, right? They could make me do what they wanted to do. And in the military has a certain amount of efficiency to it and the way we do things. Transitioning into government contracting, even though I was doing it for DoD, I realized it wasn't the same, right? It wasn't the same. So it's probably like, and it turned out to be that way for almost every organization I worked at. You got to learn the new culture, right? I learned the military culture because it was ingrained into me. They almost beat it into you. They did not ever lay a finger on me, but they mentally get into your head and put their stamp on you. And then when you move and you're doing that in the contracting space, you know, I worked for some amazing companies, both large and small. Every one of them has their own unique culture, and you need to roll with it, right? You need to get integrated into it. Same thing I do at every agency I go to. You learn who the people are that you need to know, who are the people your job impacts, or their job impacts your area of expertise, and get to know them really, really well and build friendships. But that was still in DoD for me. All the contracting I work was in DoD, you know, things like Army Operations Center was a big one. Working back for the Air Force, where I had previously been, like 3 years later, somebody called me and said, "Hey, you built this thing when you were in the Air Force. Would you come be a contractor now to build version 2?"
Oh my God!
Awesome experience, right? That just I lucked into that.
So cool.
But DoD is its own unique entity within government, and so the mission is different. The mission's important. When I worked in the Army Op Center as a software developer, I went to work in a sub-basement, in a skiff, in the back room of the skiff, I sat in a little tiny desk that's like yay big, barely I could fit in it. And right next to me was a captain. And every day she'd tell me my requirements. I coded them, tested them. She tested them, and we deployed them that day because it was mission essential post 9/11, right?
Yep.
Trying to support that mission. So I love that, right? There's life on the line, right? The missions there are some missions where you can buy in. Transitioning to government, I will tell you, it's a twofold benefit. Government, I love public service. That's why I went to the military to begin with. I loved being a DoD contractor when the military wasn't right for me anymore. I love doing public service. So that's why, that was one reason why I came into government, because it truly is coming to government and let's do work for the public. Let's do work for the taxpayer. Let's meet the mission requirements, right? Let's get it done and let's do it right. Let's not waste money. Let's not waste time. Let's just do it. I love that. That's what I like about public service. And we get a bad rap. There's a lot of comments about government employees and they're lackadaisical or slow, right? I don't think that's as true as it used to be, but then it could be because I don't put up with that where I work, right? So
I would agree with Jeremy too. Like my experience with the people I've worked with in government is not that.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying there aren't, right? Every organization's got the slackers, if you will, who hide under the radar. But I think for the most part, I love public service, and so I want to do the best I can for the public. And then I would say second, for somebody who used to be in the military, you have the benefit from a career perspective that when you come into government, you get credit for those years of experience towards calculating how much vacation time you get.
Right.
And you can buy that time into the federal retirement system for your federal pension.
Okay.
Pivoting with that, how did your personal life, fit into your job trajectory? Like, did you and your now wife like fall in love over like discussing government policy or like? What? I doubt that, but like,
that's so funny. That would be interesting. No, I married my wife when I was 22.
Okay.
So I was still in the Air Force, young, and couldn't afford it, but got married anyway. Because why not, right?
Well, she's lovely. We like Jay and I have met her, and she's lovely, so we get it. Yeah.
But I will say, people who are in government service, your spouse is not along for the ride. That's why if you retire from the military, your wife also gets a certificate of appreciation for the years of service.
Oh,
really?
So nice.
Yes.
I didn't know
when you retire from the military, your
cool.
spouse, I say wife because in my case it's be wife, but your spouse, right? Whoever your spouse is, gets that additional recognition for time served, if you will, because deployments and all the things that go into being in the military, the family burden lies on the spouse who's at home the most, because they're the one who has the greater. And if they're both military, it's even harder. So I would say, when deciding to ask my wife to marry me, that was definitely part of consideration, right? That we have to be partners in this public service life. And I chose wisely. How would I say that? I chose wisely. It's worked out very well. We were great partners throughout this and continue to be. Thankfully, the kids are gone, so we don't have that particular part of it to deal with anymore. But like, she understands. So like, as part of my it's part of me being in government.
I'm guessing you mean your kids are grown. I'm like, what?
Yeah, you're not gone. Like, they're grown.
He dropped Izzy off in front of AvePoint and said, "Here you
go." Yeah, exactly.
Goodbye.
That's right. That's AvePoint's child. It's not my child anymore.
My work daughter is a lovely human being. Stop talking so negatively about it.
But I would say that she's so supportive of everything I do. So I volunteer in organizations that are for government and industry to get together to solve government problems. I spend a lot of time doing that, but it's important to me because it's part of that public service piece of trying to solve problems. You can't always solve them only within your organization. Sometimes you need people from across government to come together and brainstorm and talk about, and maybe we get one agency to implement this great change and it has a ripple effect where all the other agencies then adopt it, right? And so she puts up with that. She gives me the support to go to those events, especially since all those are typically after hours. They're not in my capacity as somebody at SEC. They're in my personal capacity as just generically somebody in government.
Right. That's awesome. And you've done some really interesting stuff also, like kind of tangential to that, like the Geek Within logo behind you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and why you do that?
Yeah. So I'm interested in people.
Yeah.
One reason I know all of you, right? There was opportunities for me to get to know you, and we ran into each other multiple times, and then continued to interact. And when COVID occurred, if you test me on Myers-Briggs or DISC profile or any of those personality things, my extraness is off the charts. Or extrovertness is off the charts.
Yeah.
So I needed an outlet, right? And so I had a couple different things going on at the same time. I had a young junior in high school daughter who was trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life. She knew she wanted to be in the tech field, but she didn't know exactly what that path would look like. And I needed people to talk to. So I started the Geek Within as an interview series where doing something like this, where kind of questions you're asking me, although I keep them a little, more contained because not a lot of people like to talk about their personal life. I'll talk about it all day long.
Yeah.
And I do that interview series to just say, hey, who are you? Where are you today? But how did you get there? What decisions did you make? Did you go to college? Did you do a certification route? Did you fall into an organization and just luck out and then build your career from that point on, right? How did you get where you are? And what I really love is the varied answers to those questions. There are so many different ways. There are people I know who went to school and were chemists, or they were in psychology, and now they're either a scrum master, project manager, right? They're in IT now, right? Yes. The stories they were mostly to inspire my daughter hey, look, it's okay if you don't know the exact path it's going to take to get where you might want to go. And maybe you don't even know where you want to go yet, right? You just have an inkling of the direction you want to head in. That's okay too. Here's these great stories that kind of show you that that's possible. And I really try to bring up. Yeah.
You can always drastically change direction too. There's a lot of people that are like, right. I'm testament of that. So like,
and all three of you have been guests. So we should put links in the chat to all three of those episodes.
Love to. Yeah, that's really so. One kind of your curiosity has always been kind of what connects you to people, right? Like you said, you've met some of us in person, and that opportunity to meet gave you an opportunity to ask another question, and so it is interesting to see your.
Sorry.
Rima just called him our Oprah on the back chat.
I'm gonna call him.
Oh, no.
Because you like to interview people and you're curious about people. Sorry, I like to just anyway. You're like my government Oprah, my government IT Oprah. Anyway, so.
That's fantastic. Oh man. Well, listen. One last question for you, Jeremy, as we try to wrap here. What's something people seem to misunderstand about you? If people make an assumption about you, it's always this one thing keeps coming back, right? Like my dad jokes are terrible, something like that.
Wow.
That is true for you though, Jay. I will say.
Oh yeah, your dad jokes are pretty terrible. You should write that one down on a whiteboard and read it every day.
Oh my god.
I would say I think most people underestimate my personal willingness to empathize with them. When you get in a business environment and it's not all cutthroat, but it's certainly, I got my lane and I'm protecting my lane. And this is my program. I'm protecting my people, which I'm a huge proponent of that. Somebody else says, no, I'm protecting my people. I'm in, right? Let's protect your people too. But then let's still talk about how to get this done. Right. And so my leadership methodology is not, it's much more about empathizing with people. It's, figuring out what's making us tick. And I think people in work, right, we overlook that, right? In work, we're like, they're the whatever director, or they're the, technician for this and that. And that's the scope of the box we put them in. And we have to realize that some people care more broadly than that. I care not just about my program, but I care about the people in your program too. So I don't want to ever ask you to do something that's going to harm that. Let's work it out and figure out a better way to do it where we're all happy.
Right.
Makes sense.
Love that.
Cool.
All right.
Very cool. Well, Jeremy, thank you for being our guest today. Hopefully this gives people a little bit of insight into why you do this month after month, what your goals are and what your day-to-day is like. I think that kind of a background helps people to see, when we're talking about Microsoft 365 for Gov, like why do we care about it? Is it just because we're paid to do it? What drives the research we're doing and all that. So thank you, Oprah Wood, for joining us today.
No, thank you. I really appreciate an opportunity to express my, my perspective on things and what makes me tick, and connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter if you want. Our socials are there. Happy to connect you if you're somebody who's in industry and wants to come into government. Talk to me. I'd love to sell you on why you should come work for the government. Or I'd love to sell you on why you should work for a company who does business for the government.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's awesome.
Cool. Where can people find you, by the way, other than monthly here? I know you've got that domain in the background. How can people reach out to you?
Geek Within is my user tag on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's crazy that I secured that a long time ago. And then the geekwithin.net is my website that'll take you to a list of all the episodes that I've done on my podcast.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We've got some really great stuff coming on the M365 Government Community Call in the near future. I mentioned we're looking to line up a conversation with Antoine Snow of AvePoint about Zero Trust in Microsoft 365. He and I actually just did a presentation on it at EduCon in DC, where we deep dive into Microsoft's stance on it, CIS's stance on it, the technology that comes with it, that Microsoft provides to support it. Really fun stuff there. Also topics around AI for Gov. Even though Jeremy said they can't use it, there's a lot happening.
No, there's a lot of AI being used. It's just not generative AI yet.
And then also the Emergency Operations Center announcement from 2 months ago. We've got that lined up, and that's going to be coming in the next couple of months as well. So really fun stuff. If those topics aren't of interest to you and you have other topics you want to hear about, put it in the chat. Message us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and otherwise tell your friends. Come join us every month. It's a lot of fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.